welcome to The Real Factor. My name's Thor,
And I'm Ed.
and today we're going to finish up our Spooktober with 1982's The Thing, starring Kurt Russell.
Yes. So this is actually a remake. There was a 1960s version of The Thing, which actually was shown in the movie Halloween. That was the movie that they turned on late at night to watch. But this is basically about a spaceship that crashed to Earth. We don't know when. You know, they speculate it was probably thousands of years ago. And scientists find it, and there's some type of organism, entity within the spaceship that gets attached to this group of basically a U.S. outpost in Antarctica, and it mimics other people.
Well, first they got started, it started with the Norwegians. The Norwegians found it, and it mimicked, I guess, some of them, and then went into a dog.
Right. And so
that's where it starts.
It starts off with the Norwegians trying to kill the dog.
They look heartless, I tell you.
I know. But this movie is all basically about trust and speculation. If you kind of, narrow it down to basically kind of how do you trust your fellow person. I think it's also kind of interesting. This was also very big right at the probably height of Cold War era, where trust was also a very big issue with nations and U.S., Russian nations and all that kind of stuff.
Wow, you're really drawing it way out there.
Yeah, deep dive. Well, hey.
Yeah, I mean, but you're in Antarctica, which you were secluded from the rest of the world.
Oh, I'm talking about the themes of the movie.
Okay.
The themes of the movie, not the characters. They could care less.
Oh, okay.
But I'm talking about the themes of the movie, about what it's reaching out and what the public was feeling during that time for, distrusting the other nations and such.
Okay. All right. But so I will go with we're talking about the trust theme. Being in Antarctica and you're at this outpost with a certain number of people for months or maybe a year, or however long their stay is.
And isolated.
When they were trying to reach everybody on the ham radio or whatever it was, the CB radio, and they couldn't reach anybody. So when you're talking about trust and things start going awry and this entity mimics people, like can actually camouflage themselves as the living person
Yes.
that creates a big problem.
I know. So, what if I am not me? What if I start to sabotage this podcast?
Again?
What are we going to do?
No.
Maybe again.
So, I guess we'll have to deal with that, and I'll have to get the flamethrower out. It amazed me, though. I may be jumping way ahead. It amazed me how many flamethrowers they had. But I started thinking about that during the movie, but I'm like, why do they just have 3 flamethrowers there arbitrarily, like everywhere? But I'm like, well, I guess it is Antarctica, and you might have to melt some things. But
yes,
it was just like, go get the flamethrower. Okay, it's right here in my locker, my storage locker. It's like in my room. I don't know.
Standard issue for U.S. outposts. And for scientific outposts in Antarctica.
Yeah, they had a lot. Well, and also for being a scientific outpost, they had a lot of weapons there.
You don't know who's going to come attack you in Antarctica.
Well, you wouldn't think someone, maybe something, some animals. But what do they have there? Penguins?
Them emperor penguins are pretty nasty.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen Happy Feet. I know.
They come tap dance all over your ass. But yeah, no. So this movie is known for being a huge bomb whenever it came out in 1982.
And I can see that.
And but I honestly, well, it's honestly it's a more intelligent movie than what people think it is. It's sitting in the horror aisle, and there are a lot of horrific elements in it, but it is really a thriller.
It is.
As far as it's kind of a whodunit, and the last man standing kind of deal, and it's honestly gained a lot of popularity. A lot of people go into really big deep dives and speculation on the internet, discussing this movie and.
I don't see why it's necessary, honestly.
Well, no, I think that you talk about, we know who got infected first and where it led and who's kind of who's hiding their fact?
They think they make it sound like Clark got infected first.
Right, the dog handler. Yeah.
Right, but he did not.
He did not.
So that made McCready was a murderer.
He was the other guy was being attacked.
He did come at him with a knife, so he was kind of self-defense, but it wasn't.
Again, distrust. Who do you trust? I don't trust that you're going to have my back. He was going to stab his back, but no.
You couldn't fall asleep. They had to stay awake for, I think it was like 48 plus hours.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like you're in an isolated area. You're freezing. You are, lack of sleep, which also causes your mind to start to just create scenarios in your head, and how these people at this place dealt with that. How would you deal with that?
Probably the same way they did. I wouldn't trust anybody. I don't even know if I'd trust myself, because some of them seemed like they weren't trusting themselves.
I think it's
a couple of them. Is it like because they were doing the blood test, and it was like and they were watching the blood test like, am I going to be infected or am I not? Yeah, and you should have automatically known.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that's kind of sometimes where you just people have self-doubt anyways. You're being tested. You're like, did I do that? Did I do that good on the test? I don't know.
Hilarious when they tied them all. They tied them all to the chairs, but then they tied them all together. So when the one actually was an alien, the other ones couldn't get away from them. I was like, oh, that's hilarious. This movie was not a horror movie at all, in my opinion. I guess it's billed as horror / sci-fi. I guess more sci-fi for me. I wanted to say CGI, but it's not.
It's practical effects.
The practical effects, the special effects, I just kept laughing. I haven't seen this movie since probably the early 80s, and so I just watched it again for this, and I just kept laughing because it was, I hate to say cheesy.
I disagree.
You do?
Yeah.
Because, the monster having a head up here and then a head down here was like a dog and then a half a person, and then over here it was something else, and then these tentacles coming out. You were there beside me. I was laughing. But I did like that all of a sudden that the spider legs would come out, because it just needed just a small piece inside a living tissue to regenerate and recreate itself. So that was cool. But I just kept laughing. You heard me. I'm sorry, but I guess for 82 it was good.
Well, I think the practical effects still hold up quite well today for what it was. It was honestly very horrific effects. The dismemberment that you see in these people and how they change shapes and evolve is quite disgusting. But cool in the same effect. My outlook on it from whenever I saw it at 12 to now, 40 years later is I had the appreciation, but when I saw it first I was like, ugh.
Well, I'm sure when I first saw it, I was disgusted and scared and everything else. But looking at it now, it's like, okay, it could have been done a little bit better. I was more scared with Poltergeist or something like that. I'm not a horror fan. Sorry if you're listening, but it's not my genre. There's other stuff, even from that era, that was scarier to me.
Well, but and we'll disagree on that. I think you can look at a lot of...
I'm not going to fight you over it.
But a lot of those 80s type practical effects, the creature effects, all kind of have, to me, they have that same, and the same vibe, with it, kind of the same look. And even if you compare that to the mid-2000s, not really remake, but reboot of it, which was a prequel to this one, and they had the CGI monsters. To me, it had lost. Well, there were some elements of that was better because you could do more with more horrific elements of the dismemberment, and like the one that they showed you from the Norwegians where they had the face meld. Well, they actually two people, the face come together and it melds into one, which I think is where that alluded to. Right. But the authenticity and like how you could the tactile sense of the practical effects, to me, I just think that we've lost a lot of that in today's age.
Yeah, no, age. I will say the movies from the 80s, and we can go into a whole deep dive on that later or whatever, but movies from the 80s were the greatest. And, the special effects were not what they could be now with CGI, but the practical effects were tremendous. I just kept laughing, though. I don't know why. I guess because I expected to be scared out of my mind, and I was just like laughing, and I don't know why. I just was. Yeah. But that's okay.
So what character did you feel the most connection to?
The most connection to?
Yeah.
I'd say the main character, McGrady, which was Kurt Russell, because he knew in his heart that he was not one of the monsters, and he kept trying to, even when somebody tried to make him or make everybody else think he was a monster, he still had to battle against everybody at that point.
Yeah.
And, and so he was still being the rebel, but being a leader. He still took charge. So, that's what I'm most connected with.
Okay. Well,
what about you?
It's probably about the same. I think that, and this is kind of where I was going to get to, Blair, who was Wilford Brimley in the movie.
He needed his mustache. Sorry. I kept going diabetes. He'll tell you. I kept going diabetes.
His motivation in the beginning of it, where he was basically destroying everything because he understood what was going on. I identified with that because I'd be like, okay, so this organism is extremely prolific and is deadly and could wipe out the population. So what do I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen? But my question really is, at what point in the movie was it, probably when he was in isolation, that he then became infected and
that's exactly
redone?
What it was.
Because I don't think that if he was destroying the equipment, especially like the helicopter. But he was destroying the helicopter to build his own little craft, to get out. So
yeah, he took the electronics out of it
and some of the outer pieces. But
yeah.
But my thing is, in my heart, I still think that he was not infected at that point early in the movie, where he was destroying like the equipment and went crazy.
I don't think.
But was done later. But I think some people probably would argue that he was infected the whole time.
I don't think he was infected because whenever he saw the computer screen that came up and it said within so many hours of this thing taking over, it would take over the entire world. That's when he started destroying everything.
And maybe he said, "Ooh, quicker than I thought."
Yeah.
So,
really. But he was in isolation. The floorboards were missing, and that's when they found. So obviously he knew he had.
You were asking about putting the floorboards back. Yeah. It was the tentacles. The tentacles that came out of them that put the floorboards back in.
He left the door wide open, and that's what threw me. Is like, okay, they're like the door's open, and they're like, oh wait a minute, the floorboards are loose, and they took the floorboards out. So why would he open the door and leave the door open, but put the floorboard? Oh, I know why. I got it. Never mind. He left, put the floorboards back so they didn't see it.
Yeah.
Never mind. When I was watching it, I was thinking he went out a different way, and I'm like, why would he go back in? Anyway, I answered my own question. Sorry to waste y'all's time.
But if he was building that little spacecraft,
he had to build it for a while.
It was because it was really, like you said, it was about basically 2 days that this thing was kind of going on. There ain't no way you could have built that in 2 days.
No, because he would have had to dig out the whole chamber underneath there to get all the parts.
I guess the tentacles could scoop it all out, but I did not.
My thought was there was a second craft that had crashed, and he found it and he was repairing it. That was my thought.
It could have been, or unless somebody there was infected the whole time.
Yeah, I guess they could be. And then whenever the dog and the Norwegians came,
he's like, "I'm coming home to you."
And that could be some. That's a very good thought. And maybe when the Norwegians chased that dog, which was infected,
the dog was running to where it knew his peoples were.
Yes.
So
going to its like kind.
Right.
That's a very good point. So, and maybe if you've looked into the deep dives, maybe somebody's come up with that. I have not.
Put something in the comments if you know something about that. But yeah, but that so and I only really, I thought the movie was paced well. I mean, it's just under 2 hours. I thought that the tension really kept it going at the end. But my only problem was that I kept losing place of where everybody was at the campsite, and maybe that's the point of it, that they shift focuses onto these group of people, so you forget about this person over here when they come back in the picture. You're like, oh, are they infected or not? I don't know.
Yeah,
but that was my one concern, because and it was made it look like a whole bunch of different buildings there at the outpost. So
yeah, but the outer buildings were just like one room here or there. I mean, it was like a weather station or wherever the pilot was at in his station, but the rest of it was a main compound. I guess mainly for heating and, well, I won't say cooling, but for heating purposes. But no, I think they purposely, you had to follow certain people at different times, so you would forget about the others, and then you wonder where they were at. And it's just like, there's just too many people to keep track of on such a small station.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the end. There's a lot of speculation online whether or not, because you only had two people left, and that was Keith David and then Kurt Russell. And so some people think Kurt Russell was still a thing, and some people think Keith David was a thing. Some people think neither one of them were.
I think neither one of them were, because Kurt Russell, with the blood test, he proved he wasn't, and Childs wasn't. And then, like you said while we were watching it, he wouldn't have blown his own species up.
Yeah.
Because who would have he had to prove it to? It's not like he was sacrificing one of his own to prove to this other group, like that's behind him, like, oh, look, I'm not one of them. I just destroyed one of them, and now I'm going to get all you guys.
Right.
He was the quote-unquote last one left. That's what he thought, potentially, I guess. And so he destroyed this thing. And then all of a sudden, here comes Childs with the flamethrower going, hey, buddy, what's up? But then we talked about the liquor and, the different vices that they were having, whether they're smoking dope or drinking or cigarettes, that this thing didn't want to attack them. Or once he attacked, this entity attacked the people and overtook them, they weren't drinking. They didn't do the dope. They didn't do the things that they were doing. So for Childs to come there at the end and start drinking that bottle, from the bottle, it's like,
yeah, unless he was going to take it and then reach out and take him down. But no, I agree with you. I think they were both human. I think it's a tragic ending where they sacrifice themselves. They're going to freeze to death out there.
Well, Childs didn't know that because, or did he? Whenever they were like, we're not going to make it out of here, did he say that to Childs as well?
I think
I don't know.
They said something right at the very end of it that they kind of talked about it, but yeah, like.
But I think it's a good twist, because usually on these movies only one person lives, so I think it was good that the two. Now, they probably both died because it was going to get to like 160 below, is what McCready said. In 6 hours or less or whatever it was, it's going to be 160 below.
Yeah.
You can't survive an 8. So they knew they were sacrificing, but for the greater good of humanity, we're going to burn this thing out.
Yeah. So all right.
What's your real grade?
So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think that, I really do like the film. I don't love it as much as some people do. I think it's the greatest science fiction horror movie of all time. Yeah, that goes to Alien for me.
Alien is so much better than this.
But I do think that this is. I think it's a little bit more. I think it's a little more highbrow than what people give it credit for. I think it's written very smartly. I think it's directed very smartly and intense, which I think gives it that. And it's because you're kind of in a confined area where you're kind of trapped and you really can't get out. It has that alien feel to it, because you have the creature kind of running around and you don't know. I mean, they're not an alien. They weren't all turning into something, but you still kind of you still have that sense of urgency that I've got to find this thing before it finds me. And that tension just kind of goes throughout, and I think it makes it a better film.
Yeah, I would just give it an 8 out of 10. I actually was comparing it in my mind to Alien in a couple different ways while we were watching it. One, to me, the slow build-up. Now, Alien, I think, was a little bit slower build-up because here you knew something was up with that dog at the very beginning. It's like, why are these people trying to kill this dog?
Right.
And then, like, literally throwing grenades at it and shooting at it. But anyway, so I was comparing it to that. It was like a slow build-up, and then you have the monster. But I think, even though I think Alien is a better movie overall, this one has really good suspense because the thing can mimic other people. It actually, takes on their look and their speech. And I'm sure there's telltale signs that if you're really in that situation that there might be a code word or something that you're like, okay, you don't normally use that vocabulary or something.
Right.
No, I mean, it was a good movie. It's worth a watch for sure.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I think if you are a movie aficionado, you need, or especially if you love horror or science fiction, this needs to be on your list to watch.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you think about The Thing. And put your comments down below. And please like and subscribe. It helps us out on the channel. We want to get those subscription numbers up so you always know what's coming up next on The Real Factor.
That's right.
All right. See y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.